We have a 2003 Audi A4 1.8 liter turbo. I'm gonna show you how to replace the thermostat. If you have a check engine light on and you scan the car and the codes are coolant system malfunction, usually that points to the thermostat, or maybe you could have also the code saying that the engine temperature is too low. That could point towards the thermostat as well. Could also be a coolant temperature sensor, but most of the times it's the thermostat. You have to remember one thing: this video is for Audi A4 1.8 liter turbo only. Volkswagen Passat or Jettas, GTIs, they have different thermostats, so this video is not gonna work for VWs. This is for 1.8 liter Audi only. And number one, we're gonna remove the throttle body and the charge hose to get the alternator out. The alternator is in the way. It's gonna be much easier if you remove the alternator. You're gonna have to disconnect the battery. Do it right away so you don't short anything out. Somebody was messing around with the charge hose, so we have a problem with the clamp. The clamp is down there behind the headlight. Usually you could loosen the clamp without taking the headlight out, but the clamp is flipped, so we're gonna have to pull the headlight out. In order to pull the headlight out, you got two T30 screws over here on top, one down there by the power steering fluid reservoir, see that T30 bolt, and one right there by the radiator. The ones in the bottom, in the back of the headlight, you do not have to take them out completely, just loosen them, and you could slide the headlight out without a problem. Be careful with the headlight connector, don't break it. Somebody already broke this one, so I have to pry the tab off to get the connector off the headlight. The headlight is out. You see this is the second clamp on the bottom. It was right under the headlight. I'd suggest when you take it off, if it's like that, flip it to the other side so you don't have to take the headlight out next time. You just make it easier for yourself for the future. Take the charge pipe off. Be careful, don't break the intercooler when you pull the pipe hose off. Don't yank on it too much. You're gonna have to take the throttle body. You got a connector on the bottom. You gotta press on the connector, release the clip, and then pull it off. You have 4 5mm hex bolts holding the throttle body down. Take all 4 of them out and get the throttle body off. It's possible to take the alternator out without taking the throttle body off. It's just much easier to take the throttle body than trying to squeeze the alternator. Take that little bracket off that supports the intake manifold. You got 2 6mm hex bolts, one on the manifold, one down there by the block. This guy down there. Release all the wiring that's stuck to it. Right? Make sure your battery is disconnected. Now we're gonna work on getting the alternator out. Gonna need a 17mm wrench to release the belt. You don't have to take the belt out completely. Just take it off the alternator. You got 4 6mm hex bolts holding the alternator down. 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. Take them all out and get the alternator off. So you're gonna have to disconnect the wiring in the back of the alternator. Alright, disconnect the electrical connections from the back. You got one plug. This is the alternator driver, the wake up voltage wire, and the power wire. You got 13mm nut on it. Remember, your battery is supposed to be disconnected right now. Oh, you got a broken connector. You could use a 90-degree pick tool to get the connectors off if yours is broken as well. Slide it under it and pry the tab off.
It's broken completely.
The tab is missing as well?
Yeah.
Alright. I'll get the alternator out. Make sure you note how the alternator was sitting there, because I've seen people flipping the alternators over. They almost bolt on, however not all the way, and the casing usually cracks when you tighten the bolts. So just put the bolts in the alternator so you know which way it's gonna go in. But as I said, you could either bolt it like this, or you could flip it and bolt it like that. When you bolt it like that, you're gonna have a problem, because this side is a little bit bigger than that, and when you're gonna be bolting it down, it's gonna crack the casing. So I've seen that happen. People do that all the time. Don't be one of those people. Alright, there's our thermostat. We got a one pipe going up the hose. Release the clamp with the pliers. Pull the hose off. We're gonna drain the coolant first. We're gonna have to take the belly pan down and drain the coolant. We don't want to spill it all over the place. We got car up in the air. Somebody discarded all the clips in the belly pan and used the bolts. So take the belly pan off. We gotta drain the coolant. This is a perfect spot to drain the coolant. This temperature switch. Just pull the pin out, lower the car, and then pull the sensor out. Make sure you open the cap, the coolant tank cap, prior to that, and close it. Close it is gonna make sure that you don't leak too much coolant once you pull the sensor out, so it's not gonna burst out. And then pull the sensor out when the car is down. Use some to catch the coolant. Then open the cap again so you let the air into the system. You can pull the sensor out from under the hood. So once you open pull the sensor out, it's leaking a little bit. Now once you're gonna open the cap, it starts pouring out. Make sure you let the pressure out of the system. Well, if there's pressure, it means your car is hot. Don't work on your car when it's hot. So, but open the cap before you pull the sensor out, before you pull the pin out of the sensor, just in case, and close it again. Here's our thermostat. Somebody replaced it before. You could see silicone all over the freaking thing. You cannot use silicone. Do not use silicone on any of these connections. Silicone will make you leak. Do not use silicone. You gotta take that 10mm bolt from this pipe. This pipe goes to a heater core and a oil cooler. That pipe is held by that 10mm bolt at the thermostat housing, and you have another one, this one right there, at the oil cooler housing, oil cool filter bracket. There you go. You gotta take that one out as well. It's actually holding the pipe in place. We use a little magnetic socket, works very good in order not to drop the bolt. Be very careful when you put in this bolt back in. Start threading it in by hand. It's very easy to misalign it and mess up the threads. Now you're gonna have to pry that pipe out of the housing. Make sure you take both bolts out before you start prying on the pipe. Oops, somebody's got wrong coolant in there. Use only original G12 and now G13 coolant. G12 and G13 are compatible. Dealers don't sell G12 anymore, but use only proper coolant. Any other coolant will eat your head and other aluminum parts in your engine. You gotta release the clip in the bottom, pull it out about a half an inch. Be very careful not to break the connector. And now you got two 10mm bolts at the bottom, at the base of the thermostat housing. So now our thermostat is free to come out. See that hose over there? We took the clamp off before, so don't forget to take the clamp off and pull the hose off the thermostat. Now pull the thermostat off. Usually use a 90-degree pick to pry all the hoses off. Gets under the hose easily, and if the hose is stuck, be very careful. Don't rip the hose up. You gotta release the thermo switch connector, and your thermostat is out. You see, there was silicone on it. It was leaky. Do not use silicone on any of the thermostat connections. Do not use silicone. Other thing is, see this elbow over here, this little plug? If you're working on your thermostat, replacing a thermostat, always replace that elbow as well. They're known to be leaking a lot. Replace this elbow. It's only like $13 or $15 at the dealership. See, somebody's been there already. The bolt is loose, the elbow is loose, it's leaking as well. So make sure you tighten everything up when you're working on it. The elbow, the plug, has a 13mm bolt holding it down. Here's the plug. and the plug is broken as well. See? To make it easier, you have a part number for a new plug. It's right here. This is the part number. Get it to the dealership. Get all the parts to the dealership. There's coolant flanges and thermostats. We've tried to use a lot of different aftermarket companies. Even if when we use the OE supplier aftermarket companies, we had a lot of problems with them. So use dealer parts only, just to make sure you don't have to do it twice. We have a new plug and an old broken plug. Make sure to clean all the surfaces truly. They have to be clean, free of rust, silicone, or any other debris that might be there. In order for your work to be successful, it must be clean. One more thing, very important. If you take the plug out and the plug is missing a piece, that means that piece went right into the water pump, because right there, see that in the mirror? This is a water pump impeller. If you look closely, see? This is the pieces of that plug. The water pump was replaced. This is aftermarket water pump with a metal impeller. So the plug didn't do any damage to the impeller. Messed up the balance of the impeller. Probably this pump is gonna start leaking very soon. But however, it's still good. You have to take those pieces out. If you do not have a metal impeller pump, always inspect your pump while you're working on a thermostat. See, you could see the impeller very clearly. You could see those pieces of the plug in there. If this pump would be original, this pump would be a gunner right now. Alright? So take the pieces out, inspect the impeller. If you take any of the parts out and you're missing pieces, you have to find those pieces. They will be somewhere. The coolant system is sealed, so you're definitely gonna find them somewhere in the coolant system. Like this guy is lucky that the pump is aftermarket and has a metal impeller. Although I wouldn't suggest using a metal impeller pump, but it kind of saved them from doing another timing bolt job. Yep. Once again, if you take anything out, any of the flanges, plugs, or anything like that, and you see missing pieces, they're somewhere in your coolant system, most likely in your water pump. So once you took off the thermostat, inspect the water pump impeller. Because what happens is if you put everything back together, it might be working for a couple of days and then it's gonna crap out on you again. Make sure the surfaces are very clean. All the surfaces, degrease them. We're not gonna mind that dirty coolant in there. We're gonna flush it right now. I'm gonna put everything back together and flush the coolant system to get the rest of it out. Just gonna suck some of it out so it doesn't get into sealing surfaces. So our surfaces are clean and free of grease and coolant. When you're replacing the thermostat, change all the O-rings and the coolant pipes, thermostat, everywhere. Make sure there is, once again, make sure there is no silicone or any other debris anywhere around sealing surfaces. You grab a little piece of sandpaper and clean that whole pipe up. The main point, all the surfaces gotta be clean. any fittings that you're putting in with O-rings that go into anything, like pipes, plugs, and anything like that, you gotta lubricate the O-rings so they don't get caught on the housing and don't rip. Slide her in very easily, twist it around, make sure it doesn't get caught. So put the plug in, put the bolt in, don't forget to tighten it like those other guys did. There's your plug. Install a new O-ring on the pipe, lubricator as well, but in this case you're better off lubricating the inside of the thermostat. Here's our thermostat. I suggest using all dealer parts. Put that hose into the thermostat first. It's easier that way. Now stick the thermostat into the spot. Make sure it aligns properly. Make sure you don't get the O-ring damaged. Put the bolts in as far as you can by hand. Make sure you don't tighten one bolt and then thread another one in. Put them in almost all the way. Don't tighten them when they already almost tight. Then you could tighten one at a time. But thread them in all the way before you tighten them. And while you threading them in, watch the thermostat to the block surface so to make sure it's aligned properly and the O-ring is not getting caught on the block. Now put the clamp back into the spot where it was. When you're putting those clamps on, try to get it exactly as it was, because it's gonna leave a mark on the hose. And when you're putting it back on, try to get it back exactly in the spot where it was. So we bolted the pipe back on. See that? It's our 13mm bolt. Be very careful when putting it in. You might strip the threads easily, so put it in by hand. The 10mm bolt is back in. Now we lubricate the pipe. It goes onto the thermostat.
Plug.
Close the clip on the pipe and slide it onto the thermostat until you hear click. Try to yank on it, make sure it's on all the way. Connect the temperature switch on the thermostat, and you could start putting the alternator back in. You do remember that the alternator only has to go in one way. You could put it in the other way, but you will break it. So for safety, mark which side was out. Connect the wiring to the alternator. Remember, our battery is disconnected, so we're not afraid of shorting anything out. before you put everything back together, I would suggest putting a new coolant in, bleeding the system through the bleeder right over here on top, and pressurize the system just in case if you have any leaks, so you don't have to take everything apart again. But we're not gonna do that because we have some more work to do on the coolant system, so we're gonna do that later. Once again, you got 4 6mm hex bolts holding the alternator down. We connected all the electrical stuff back to the alternator. Back on 17mm wrench, compress the tensioner. Relatively easy. Make sure it's on all the pulleys, every single groove. If it's misaligned a little bit, it will eat the belt up and probably do damage to your radiator, so make sure it's aligned properly on all the grooves and every pulley. Don't forget, you have a little bracket to put on to support the intake manifold. 2 6mm screws, and one of the wire harnesses is clipped onto it. So don't forget to put it on. It's gonna be a little pain to put it in if you put the throttle body in already, so put the bracket on first. And now put the throttle body back in. Will not replace the throttle body gasket. They usually okay. Just inspect it for damage. Make sure it's not damaged. Put some of the high-tech gasket sealer on it, and you should be alright. If you really feel like replacing the gasket, you can replace it. They usually don't get damaged, so sometimes they do get stuck and rip. Once it's ripped, then you must replace it. Connect the throttle body. Now you gotta put the charge pipe back on. Remember to flip that clamp around so it's easy for you to get to it without removing the headlight. Just flip it to the other side, away from the headlight. And put the headlight back in. See the headlight bolts, the rear ones, we did not take them out. The headlight slides under them. Then you just have to tighten it. It's a pretty big pain in the ass to actually put those bolts in if the headlight is in place. So leave the bolts in there. Connect the electrical connection to the headlight first. Slide her in. Slide her under the bolt. Make sure the headlight is sitting flush. When you tighten in the bolts, make sure the headlight is sitting all the way in. And you're all set. Fill the coolant system. Oh, yeah. You're all set. Just put the thermo switch back into the lower radiator hose. Make sure you replace that O-ring on the sensor. And fill the coolant system up. Here's a bleeder to bleed the system. run the car, make sure it doesn't overheat, and that's it.